Thank you so much, Rudy and Evan, and wonderful East Bay Meditation Center BIPOC Sangha. We're so grateful for your practice. So we'll begin with some guided meditation, and I will open with just a couple minutes, just a kind of a little dipping our feet into the warm waters of metta or loving kindness meditation, and then turn it over to our wonderful guest teacher this evening, Bhante Sanāthāvihārī. So please find whatever position works well for you for the next period of guided meditation. And I'll invite the bell of mindfulness. Fully present to one another in Sangha, spiritual community, the third of the triple gem, the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to which we go for safety, for refuge, for inspiration. So taking refuge, in this case in Sangha, you're invited for just a moment to incline the heart-mind toward the very, I feel, necessary quality of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a medicine or an antidote for hatred, for aggression, for aversion. So it's something we can do for ourselves and others any time of the day or night that we're awake. So turning some well wishes toward yourself, very important. And with these words or any others that you like, may I be safe and protected from all harm, physical harm and mental harm. So as Black, Indigenous, and peoples of color, this is a very potent practice. It can help. May we be safe and protected from all harm, both inner and outer. May we be strong and healthy as possible. Some of us, including myself, have chronic pain, disabilities, and we can nevertheless experience well-being. May we experience moments of well-being throughout the day. May we be peaceful. May we be truly happy and know the causes of happiness. And may we live with joy, and may we live with ease. May all beings without exception be well and happy. And with that universal wish, I turn this guided meditation over to our teacher this evening, Bhante Sanāthāvihārī.
So we will continue with this listening of the heart, deepening of the heart. Let's actually, I invite everyone, if you feel safe to do so, to get in touch with your heart, your physical heart. If you experience any obstacles in trying to get in touch with your physical heart, then perhaps you can imagine a heart in your mind. And try to feel that heart beating in your chest, or see that heart in your mind beating. At the same time, you can continue with this practice of developing loving kindness. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Being well refers to their physical health and happy to their spiritual, psychological health. May all beings be well and happy. Tuning into your chest, your body, your heart, in resonance with all beings, developing a concern for the well-being of all others, or expanding this mental heart. If you imagine the mental heart, and you can imagine it growing and growing and expanding and encompassing all the beings in this heart. It just keeps growing and growing. And we can try to tap into the feeling of benevolence, love, kindness, compassion, goodwill. What does it feel like for you? What does loving kindness feel like for you? What does caring for others, wishing them well, what is that like? Listen. Listen to your heart. Listening to the heart, observing the heart, getting to know the heart, getting to know what it's like to care, to love. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. We can also be aware of any other experiences that arise. Let's open up our curious mind, a mind of investigation, a playful mind. May all beings be well and happy. How is the embodied and mental experience of generating loving kindness? We can also bring our attention to any obstacles, any possible obstacles, minor or major, maybe just some discomfort from sitting, from a long day's work, or maybe some major obstacles, maybe the image or someone, there's just someone, something that's too hard to develop loving kindness for. If any of those things do arise, then just what is it like to have that arise in loving kindness? May all beings be well and happy. Staying curious to examine the qualities of what it's like to be in a state of loving kindness, what it's like to develop loving kindness, exploring the qualities of the heart, the qualities of love and compassion. Don't take any of these concepts for granted. What is it like for you right now? What's going on in your body? What thoughts, emotions are coming up? And we can also focus on any qualities that are thriving. Maybe there's great tranquility and joy and happiness. What is that like in loving kindness? How is the totality of experience, the world that you live in right now, this cosmos, this universe that you're experiencing with countless sentient beings? How is that for you right now in loving kindness? May all beings be well and happy. The entire universe inside of loving kindness. May all beings be well and happy. And if you've been struggling, if there's really nothing there, that's okay. That is just fine. May all beings be well and happy. Staying attuned with our body, with our heart, with our mind. Experiencing the qualities of loving kindness. What's helping us lean into it and what might be hindering us. All of it can exist in loving kindness. May all beings be well and happy. And do not forget that all beings includes you. May all beings be well and happy means may I be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Staying open to whatever arises during this experience. Remaining curious. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Focus on what it's like right now to be in loving kindness. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. And remembering to stay curious. What is it like? What is it like in the body? What is it like in the mind? To develop loving kindness, to listen, to observe our heart. Aware if there's any obstacles, aware if there's any supports in this practice, whatever it is. May all beings be well and happy. If you have your eyes closed, I would invite you to gently, whenever you're ready, open your eyes and continue this practice with eyes open. May all beings be well and happy. Staying curious, investigating the body and mind while we develop this loving kindness, facing the world. How is it like to face the world in loving kindness? May all beings be well and happy. How is it like facing the world in loving kindness? And as we come close to the end of this meditation with the mind of loving kindness, let's move into the world in loving kindness. If you would like, I invite you to perhaps stretch, gently stretch, or stand up, or bring some movement. And what is it like to be traveling, moving in the world with loving kindness? This embodied living practice in the world, facing the world with a big heart. Mm. So whenever you're ready, you can let go of this meditation. Hope that it was fruitful or at least interesting. So today's theme is deep listening, deep listening. So I'm kind of tempted just not even to share anything because you've already practiced it. You've already know what deep listening is. I kind of tricked you into it. That's all it is. Just paying attention, right? Investigating, being curious, yeah, getting in touch with your heart. That's all deep listening is, That's all it is. Just paying attention. But, I have to say something. I have to some of us are more like cognitively or intellectually curious. We need some scaffolding or, something to hold on to. Okay. So I would like to start with the person who inspired me to begin my own kind of interpretation of deep listening, which is the late venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. So Thich Nhat Hanh speaks about deep listening many ways. There's a great book he has called The Art of Communicating. So I'm going to just be sharing with you some examples that he gives of like what deep listening is. So deep listening means understanding the other person and listening without judging or reacting. Deep listening is about the person feeling heard, understood, connected. And sometimes that person is yourself, Thich Nhat Hanh also explains the process as I am listening to him not only because I want to know what is inside him or to give him advice. I am listening to him just because I want to relieve his suffering. Mm. Deep listening embodies both wisdom and compassion. The wisdom is seeing things as they are, seeing the suffering, seeing the pain. Well, maybe you're having a good day, in the Bay Area or wherever you are. Maybe that's too far for you. But, maybe you had some pressure, in your bladder right now, waiting in meditation, that like discomfort, that's also part of suffering, right? That's also included in suffering, right? So maybe you can't recall any tragedy in your life right now, but there was some discomfort in your life, right? Seeing that discomfort, right? I came here to meditate. I want to meditate, but my mind is thinking about going to the bathroom. I just have to go. I have to go. I can't wait. When is it going to be? When is it going to be over? Right? Being with that, listening to that part of yourself, right? And seeing the physical discomfort, seeing the intentions that arise from the physical discomfort, seeing the bodily feelings that also arise, maybe the agitation in the body, agitation in the mind, seeing how the mind begins to wander, begins to imagine how you're going to make your escape to go to the toilet, right? Like all these things, like all of that, seeing that for what it is. It's not what you thought it was going to be, practicing loving kindness. You thought you're going to be serene and just love everyone. It was going to be perfect and blissful. Well, there's some of it, and sometimes it's not there at all, It's a mixture of everything. That is the wisdom to see all of that, right? Not to run away from it. And in the face of all that suffering, in the face of all that adversity or obstacles or messiness, tangledness of the world, right? How do we show up? all embracing. Big bear hug. It's not easy. It's not easy. Well, sometimes we might find it easy for others. But I find it more and more nowadays, it's difficult to do that for ourselves. Compassion for others, yes, right? Compassion for myself, oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I don't know. Like this kind of like fake humbleness that we go into, right? Or picking out all the mistakes you made in life, remembering how you're such a bad person. Guess what? We're all like that. And not only humans, all beings are like that. And still compassion. So when we practice today, when we were practicing this loving kindness meditation, we were using mainly two particular skills, mental qualities, right? The obvious one is developing metta, maitri, loving kindness, the Brahma Viharas. And the other one is that we were using mindfulness, right? Sati, and understanding what was happening, clear comprehension of what's happening, which is called sati sampajana in Pali. So not only were we being mindful, but we're also being kindful, right? Full of mindfulness and full of kindness together. When these two things come together is when we begin to listen deeply. So originally, I was inspired by the way Thich Nhat Hanh applied this into being with others, right? Vietnam War, going to France and the United States with Vietnamese refugees. I mean, it's difficult if you have a chance if you have a chance to read his accounts. I mean, some unspeakable things happened. But yet, he was there listening and listening to himself, right? He acknowledges in many of his own accounts of how things were overwhelming for him, right? And he's not perfect. He also shares his limitations. So he developed this deep listening to be there for others. He's a bodhisattva, a modern day bodhisattva that we had. So I was curious about this because, when I became a monk, very much like the Theravada stereotype, it was all about me. They call us Hinayana, right? The small vehicle. Like you're just looking for your own enlightenment. Okay, yes, I was. Guess what? I'm interested in myself. um, yeah, but from time to time, almost every week, young people, traditional Asian people, convert Buddhists, or people just walk. I would meet on the street when I would go alms round. They would bring the suffering to me, whether I ask for it or not. Sometimes I'm just walking down the street and people are like, "Are you a monk?" And they throw it all on me, right? I had no training, no skills really how to do this, just being there. So then, after kind of just trying to figure it out on my own for a few years, came across Thich Nhat Hanh, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. And I said, oh, here's something that I can use for something that I've already been doing. If you read his book, even in the first chapter of This Art of Communicating, he says that it starts listening to ourselves, listening to our own hearts. He says deep listening is paying attention to your body, your emotions, your thoughts, and then he gives like a long list of everything. And I already had practiced this. I already knew this. I just didn't know how to turn it outside, point it outwards towards others. I knew how to do it for myself, right? Hinayana for myself. I was doing the whole thing. I was doing it for myself, which is the practice of Satipatthana, usually translated as the four foundations of mindfulness. Some of you might know it as insight practice, Vipassana. It goes by many names, right? So in this practice of Satipatthana, of the four foundations of mindfulness, I was with observing the body, with observing feelings, means just pleasant, unpleasant, like, dislike. I was with, right, seeing and listening to my mind, the state of my mind, wavering, dull, excited, obscured, clear, open, constricted. I was with mental phenomena, all kinds of weird stuff, images, sounds, concepts, right? Some things from the past, imagining things from the future, doubt. I was with every time I would sit down, you know, the totality of my life would appear in some way or another. It may not have been cognitive, like a story, like a memory, but the body remembers too. And all those bodily memories would come up. So I learned to be with those things. And the first step, like the Buddha said very much in the Four Noble Truths, is we have to understand the suffering, right? We have to face it. We have to be curious, look at it, What is this thing that we call suffering? Have I ever seen it play out completely? That takes a lot of courage because it's not easy, and it gets more painful as the deeper you go in. It doesn't ease off. Understanding suffering, understanding our own suffering. That courage is actually compassion. That courage is the loving kindness, right? That wish, that interest you have for your own well-being, for your own happiness, right? So we're able to face suffering. We're able to investigate suffering. We're able to be with it and try to understand it out of compassion, to try to, right, go beyond suffering. Sometimes in Buddhism, we say so much dukkha, 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 suffering, suffering, suffering. First noble truth, suffering. Second noble truth, the cause of suffering. Everything's suffering, right? Actually, no, everything's happiness. At the ultimate level, everything's happiness. But it's because we haven't seen clearly. We haven't been listening deeply. At the deepest level of listening and seeing, it's actually all sukha. The Buddha said nirvana is the highest happiness. Nibbanam paramam sukham. Nirvana is happiness. Your suffering is, you don't have to suffer. That's the whole point of Buddhism. There's a way out, right? So it's actually a message of happiness, a message of compassion. The Buddha saw being suffering, and out of compassion, he shares the way to happiness. He says in the beginning is happiness, in the middle is happiness, in the end is happiness, right? So when we sit in meditation and mindfulness meditation of the body, feelings, the mind, and dhammas, we are seeing, we are mindful. That is the wisdom, seeing all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the exciting, the boring, all of it. But that very act of seeing is the compassion, right? Courage, that fierce compassion that they talk about in Vajrayana, fierce compassion. Because your interest in your own well-being is that deep, right? There's no amount of suffering that can stop you. Just like a mother, right? There's no amount of suffering. She would risk her own life to save her child. Nothing's going to stop her. Nothing's going to stop him. Nothing's going to stop them. We see ourselves in that way in all beings. But that only comes from seeing, right? It's like in Alcoholics Anonymous and other recovery programs. The first step is to know that you have a problem. There's a problem, which is suffering. And for some people, it takes a long time to even see that, to accept that. You might see it and not accept it. It's too much work. It's too painful. But that courage that it takes to do that is not being macho, it's not being tough. It's actually opening your heart. All that love, all that compassion comes in, right? In spite of fear, right? To see things as they are and to be with all that pain doesn't mean that there's no fear, right? But is in spite of that fear, my love is stronger than that fear. So the way to wisdom is through mindfulness, and the way to compassion is through loving kindness. And this is not a novel idea. you know, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh talks about it. There's a book that came out a few years by Ajahn Brahm called Kindfulness. In the suttas themselves, in the early Pali texts, there's a sutta where the Buddha talks about combining the practice of the Brahma Viharas and the practice of Satipatthana together. I mean, it's there since the beginning. This practice of listening deeply to myself, then I was able to do for others and be with others' pain. Recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, um, a lot of the kids that I've been teaching Dhamma school to, Buddhist Sunday school, too, they're all adults now. Like I started this 11 years ago. They're adults now, and they have adult problems. And I saw them when they were little children. And then they tell me these horrible things that happen to people in life, of abuse and betrayal, exploitation, death. It's like it was happening, to my mom or to my sister. Very difficult. But in those moments, that initial feeling of aversion, of recoiling, of through fear or being scared of it, or of anger, and trying to find the source of who did this to them, right? All of that's there. But my intention to want to understand them, right? And to show them that I care for them is so powerful that it's able to overcome all of that, right? It's all there. But the wisdom and compassion is bigger. And I can show up for them in this role. When they come to me, they want this role. They want the monk, you know? They don't want the person who's going to commiserate with them. That's for their best friend, commiserate with them and do all that other stuff. And I'm not there to tell them what to do. That's their parents' job, like the parents are the ones who tell them what to do most of the time, right? My job is to be with their pain, to be with them, not to recoil from their suffering. Because too often it is, right? It's a natural response to us, a natural reaction. I mean, even if you just watch like YouTube videos of people having accidents, right? Like on TikTok, we cringe, like, oh no, it's so painful. So even when you really care about someone and they share with something that's painful, you cringe, right? But that other person might see it differently, right? They don't know what we're thinking, they don't know what we're feeling. They might see it as you pushing them away, right? Or what do they say sometimes after? Oh, I'm sorry that I'm bothering you, right? They see that reaction and now they think, oh, now I'm hurting Bhante. I shared this to Bhante. Bhante's uncomfortable. I hurt him. I shouldn't have told him. But with deep listening, we can be there, right? We can be there and face all those difficulties without, in that moment, kind of like showing any kind of negative signs to what they're sharing with us. I mean, that's easier said than done. It's quite difficult, And in those moments, I'm just pulling on all my resources, right? Everything's turned up, maximum level, to be there with them. But it all starts here right now, in this moment. Can you listen to yourself right now? What is your body? What is your mind telling you? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you tired? Did you have a great day? Are you joyful? Are you excited? Do you want to share your happiness with others? What's going on with you right now? When we tune into ourselves, there's a real compassion. Real wisdom starts here. Mm. Another way that I think about this is I break it down into 3 steps. The first practice is the practice of mindfulness, just regular old mindfulness, whatever kind you do, body scan, concentration, whatever it is, walking meditation, counting the breath. That's the wisdom, seeing. First, we have to see what's really happening. Then the kindfulness is the loving kindness and compassion meditations, whether Tonglen or Maitri Bhavana or any other compassion practice that you have. We bring that together with mindfulness. And when these two come together, the 2 wings of the bird of Dhamma, then we get the true wisdom, wisefulness, wisefulness. They asked the Zen master once, "What is Zen?" The master said, "An appropriate response." Through wisdom and compassion comes the appropriate response, which Thich Nhat Hanh would call loving kindness speech, loving speech, compassionate communication, goes by many names. But in order to manifest the Dhamma, in order to give the appropriate response, we need to witness and we need to respond with care. Mindfulness, kindfulness, wisefulness, because we're going deep listening. We practice mindfulness by observing, being with, listening to the body, listening to the feelings, listening to our minds, listening to mental phenomena. And whatever arises, discomfort in meditation, memories, thoughts, weird stuff, doubt, we don't react, we don't judge, and we treat it with kindness and compassion. We add that to our mindfulness practice. When our back starts hurting, when our knee starts hurting in meditation, compassion for it, loving kindness to the body. Thank you, body. For these many years, you've been taking care of me. I appreciate you. Right? You're helping me through this meditation practice. You helped me come to tonight's event. You helped me go on retreat. I hear you. I hear your pain. I'm listening to you. 10 more minutes. Don't worry. They're going to ring the bell. So then we do that with the rest, feelings, the mind, thoughts. Mindful, kindfulness, kindful response. And then as we do this more and more, comes the wisefulness. We learn what's the appropriate response to discomfort, to suffering. And as we learn that about ourselves, then we're able to better understand other beings. This practice of loving kindness, even the practice of precepts, right? Rules, don't kill, don't steal, all this stuff, it's not because the Buddha said so. I mean, there's a discourse where the Buddha says, as I am, so are they. As they are, so am I. Taking this into consideration, one shouldn't harm or kill another being or ask another to harm or kill in their name. Right? So this understanding of wanting to care for others, passion for others, comes from understanding our own nature, the nature of our own suffering, the nature of our own compassion and wisdom and happiness too, how we all want to be happy. So we have to look inside. Once we're able to look inside, then we can do for others what we've done for ourselves.